Okay. Now, the class tag is something I really want you guys to get excited about because it's really going to make your workflow that much more enjoyable. It's going to give much more flexibility to your design for your client comps. It's going to be very simple to make changes, etc., etc., etc. So right now we have standalone class tags. So what do I mean by that? Is that these are not attached to any particular tag, which I'll show you how to do that in a second. So this color could have basically been applied to anything. Okay, so I could have said select this tag and we're going to apply this rule. Okay, now that applied it to the H1 tag because the H1 tag is set to block, so the H1 tag is taking up the entire space. But it's technically just doing the H1 tag. But the reason you're seeing what you're seeing right now, if you were to go ahead and create a rule for that, so I'm going to select the tag and make a rule. And I just want to create a rule for H1, so I'm just going to do this. In fact, let's just make this, let's just do this. Let's just say the H, here, let's select this. Let's make a rule again. So we're just going to say section H1. So basically it's the H1 rule inside the section tag. And just so you can see that this is visually different. So I'm just going to go ahead and make the width of this be, let's just make this 200 pixels. So see, that's just doing the H1 tag. Now the reason it went all the way across is because by default these are set to blocks. So that's why it went all the way across. So it's just there, but I just wanted to share that concept. Let's undo that a few times. Okay, so class tags can be peppered throughout the site. Now here is the super cool part. Okay, now notice that the article tag, by default, of course, went the entire width because it's getting its marching orders from this set of instructions right here, which said if you're an article tag, which is make it 100% wide, float it to the left, clear it to the left, and put 20 pixels of margin at the bottom. And that's what's going on down here. Okay. Now, what we want to do here is say we want to put in a couple of article tags, which we don't have right now. So we're just going to select the article tag, and we're going to do something to it. So the simplest way to do this, see what happens sometimes is when you're in design mode, or even if I click here and turn my CSS rules off. Now some of you are going, where did he get that? Okay, this is a very important thing to have turned on. This is not turned on by default in your Adobe Dreamweaver default application. This is not on by default. What you need to do is go to View, Toolbars, and make sure Style Rendering is turned on. By default, when you launch Dreamweaver for the first time, unless you change this, you're not going to see those tools up here. So you need to go to View, Toolbars, and have this turned on. Now the advantage of this enables you to see your page without or with CSS rules, which is similar to what we did in Firefox before. Now the reason that this is valuable because sometimes your CSS rules get in the way of your cursor and you can't get your cursor into a certain spot. So this is a good thing to have turned on and off. You can basically do that. And again, you have to go to View, Toolbars, and make sure it's checked. Not striped, checked. Just kidding. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to select the tag. We're going to select the article tag. Now, why am I selecting the tag? Because this way it'll take me right to the code. I don't have to drive myself nuts and kind of sift through the code. Okay, so we're going to go to code mode for a second, and the article tag is selected with a class called CColor. Okay, so we're just going to copy that to keep this simple. And I'm just going to put in 2, 3 more article tags. So here's what's happening right now. Right now I have 1 article tag, 2 article tags, 3 article tags. Now if you think about this very intuitively, if in fact I had a rule for the article tag, it would all by default be the same color, unless I call this ID article 1, article 2, article 3. So you can see how that could be very, very tedious when working with trying to give my articles different parameters. Okay, so if I want to give my article a different color, I can do that, but I can't do that by default. I'd have to do that by doing either an ID, article 1, article 2, article 3, and again, if I have 50 articles, hey, I'm up here all night. But now, through the magic of classes, I can say, okay, make this article be yellow. Let's make this article be. Now, if in fact that's yellow, which is my D color, I would probably go ahead and make my font be dark. I'm just going to make it a dark gray because that's going to look a lot nicer. Okay, then I can make this one. Let's make this article A. I'm sorry, not the tag, my mistake on that. I need to select the physical article tag itself and go ahead and make that an A color. So now I have this happening. Because class tags enable me to basically per page I can have all different combinations. So this could have been an article about software. This could have been an article about politics. This could have been an article about equipment that maybe you want to color code, which is a nice thing to be able to do. But the reason I made these 3 article tags, which I physically have 1, 2, 3 article tags, is now I want to have 3 of those go across the page. Okay. Now, we can do this with a simple article rule. We can do that with an article rule. But we can also do that with a class tag. Okay. So we're simply going to make a class tag that's tied directly to the article tag. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, in order to affect the article tag, we need to select the article tag. And we're going to say article tag, make a new article tag. Now, this is going to get very confusing because, see, Dreamweaver puts in the class tags. Notice there's no article in there. So what we can do, because we already have the word article, by the way, I'm just going to copy that. Command-C, copy. So I'm going to say compound yes, here, which is combination more than one. And we're going to say article, period. Now, when naming class tags again, you can't start with a number, okay? But we can call it something that makes logical sense, okay? So we're going to call this column 3, article column 3, and hit OK. Now, what do I mean by that column 3? Well, that means that I want to have a 3 column. Now, not 3 column in the word, actually, you could do CSS columns. We're not talking about that right now. I physically want to have 3 articles that fit inside the span of that container tag, which in this particular case is the section tag, which is by default 100%. It's 100% of itself. So the article tag, which is the parent, by the way, is always going to default to the parent tag. So whatever with the article, the section tag is, the article tag is going to default to that. So basically, the article tag by default is 100%. So we want to make this be, have 3 of them. So we can say 100%, and I can do the math right inside of this box. We can simply say we want 3 of them, divided by 3, which of course is 33.333333. Now, we don't want to make this 33.33 pixels. We want this to be percentages. But what I want to share with you is once you change this to percentages, which I can do by just putting in percentages, by the way. If you change it to percentages, you can't do the math in here. Dreamweaver hasn't fixed, I don't want to say it's an issue, but you can only do math inside of pixels. So what I might suggest you do is leave it at pixels first until you're done with your math. Now, what do I mean by that, done with your math? Well, we don't want to have these boxes smashing next to each other. Or in this particular case, let's just go with this. Let's just keep this simple. So I'm going to change out the percentages and hit the OK button. Now, again, nothing has happened. Now, this should technically go after section. Now, I don't have an article rule. I do have an article class that's tied to an article tag. So this is saying article tag dot column 3. Okay, so here's what we can do. Now, very important step. I already have a class of color. Now, I'm in CS6. Dreamweaver CS6 enables you to apply multiple classes using this menu. CS5 and CS5.5, you have to go to the code to do this. I will share with you both ways. I typically don't go back to CS5, but here's a very simple fix. If you want to, in addition to the article tag, what I want to do is apply multiple classes. It's going to bring up this dialog box. So in addition to the C color, or I can swap this around, I could do this and that. Now I can't do this and that. If you do this, it's going to take the last one that loads. Okay, that's not what I want to do. So you have to pick things that are different. Now, this could be a little confusing because it put it in the same category. So you might have called this something like, underscore or hyphen column 3. It's totally up to you. So in addition to the C color, we're going to say column 3 and hit OK. Okay. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. Okay. So this right here, I'm sorry, did I do my mistake on this? Yeah, I did that one. Okay. So here's what's happening right now. It's not going to allow a one to go to the right or the left of it, similar to how a nav tag can go up here to the right. Incidentally, let me show you the CS5 and CS5.5 way to do this. I'm going to undo that Command Z. So again, to just review here, you can take the article and you can apply multiple classes by saying apply multiple classes, and then just pick the additional classes from here. Now, if you're doing this in code, it's actually quite simple, and this can be done in any version of Dreamweaver. I go to code, and exactly my class is right here. So here's the tag that I've selected first. I've selected this article here. So when I go to code, it's pre-selected. Now, the advantage of what I just did is if I hit the space bar right now, it's going to pop up my available classes. It just did that for me. Now, part of the reason I talked about this a second ago, the reason I call this A color, B color, C color, and not color A, color B, because now I can simply type to it. So as an example, if you wanted to change a color to say color B, I can just type in B. Okay. Now, since I'm not a very good typist, the advantage of if I name this, I can type B, C, D, etc., etc. Now, if I want column 3, I can just type CO for column 3 and return key once and go to design mode. Okay, so therefore there is my column 3 applied to my article tag. Now, what's happening right now is part of the reason that these articles are not going up into here, by default, by the way, is because they're too wide. They're too wide right now. So I'm going to select this tag. I'm going to come down here to multiple classes and apply column 3. Okay, I'm going to select this tag, come down here to multiple classes and apply column 3. So understand something very, very important. The tags have been assigned. I've assigned the class. So let's look at the code for this. So those 3 articles have been assigned a class of column 3, 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 a class of column 3. Okay, but here's the problem. Okay, why are they not going next to each other? Is it because they're not inside of a browser window? No. Is it because I didn't go to live view? No. Part of the reason they didn't go together up to the right is the same reason that the nav didn't go up here to the right. So what has to happen, where's it getting its marching orders by default? It's getting its marching orders right here, which basically said, hey, go ahead and make the article tag 100% wide and float it to the left. So these by default are floating to the left. They're not 100% wide anymore, they're 33%, but it's still clearing to the left. So we need to override that rule by double clicking, and based on these choices, we're going to clear none, just like we did with the navigation system. And therefore, they go right into place. So how cool is that? So now if I go to live view, you can see you have 3 separate articles. Now, it's okay to have color on color if the color is right next to each other. But let's say, for lack of a better term, let's say that these were the same color. Well, that's going to kind of look very strange if they're kind of smashed up against each other. So what you might consider doing is I'm going to turn, now you don't have to do this. You don't have to go out of live view. I can still adjust my rules. So let's actually leave it in live view for a second. Double click down here to column, and let's go to the box. Now, what I want to do is to the right of this, put 2% margin space. Now, for those of you that are new to Dreamweaver and new to this whole CSS rules and manipulation and sizes and stuff, Margin space is the space outside of the box. Padding is the space inside of the box. This is padded by default 2% because these are paragraphs and H tags. So paragraph H tag 2% rules are coming from right here. Now, here's an important step. If I go ahead and give this 2%, which is by the way, to the right, what I want to do, then I'm going to have this happening. It's going to kick the last one out of the box because it's not going to fit. Because 33 1/3 plus 2% is what? Is 35 1/3. Well, 35 1/3 times 3 is not 100%. So what I would have to do is minus the 2% from here onto here. Now, if you slept through 4th grade math class, this might really hurt your head. And if it does, you can simply change this temporarily back to pixels and simply say -2, which of course would be 31%. But then you have to make sure this is back in percentage. I would like to think, guys, that, even though you might have slept through 4th grade math class, I would like to think that you could subtract 2 from 33, which gives you 31. Hit the apply option, and there you go. Okay, so that's how I can get my margin space in between the two. Now, here is the super, super cool part of this. Okay, let's say as an example, on the bio page or whatever subsequent page you're going to have, maybe you want your articles to be 2 across the page. So therefore, you'd have a class that said what? You'd have a class that said column 2. Now, what we can do if we want to keep everything the same minus the parameters is this. I'm going to go to the file menu and I'm simply going to call this, I'm not going to call this version 3, I'm going to call this version 2B. Now here's a little production trick. When I change file names, if I'm just doing a static change, maybe a slight change, then it would change 1A to B, C, D, E. But if I'm doing a different change, if I'm doing like a 2-column to a 3-column, or, in this particular case, maybe that falls under that category, I wouldn't change the number unless it's a more of a drastic change. And again, that's my own personal preference. This way I know the variations between my versions. Like 1 is a very, very different variation from 2. But 2B, 2C, 2D could just be a slight variation. That's a good production technique. And that technique works across the board. Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, WorkExpress, After Effects. It's the same type of scenario. So we went ahead and called this 2B. So here's what I can do. I can have a whole bunch of tools over here to help and assist me. So I'm going to select this rule. I'm going to hold down the control key, or I can go up here to the top right, and I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm simply going to call that 2. Now, of course, I need to make changes to this, which is very simple to do. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to double click 2. Now, if it helps your thinking that 2 becomes before 3, well, then just drag that to the top. So I'm going to double click 2. Now, again, if this is going to be 2 columns, then this is going to be what? Then this is going to be 50%. 50% minus 2 is 48%. That's all I needed to do. I duplicated and just changed. I don't have to change this. I don't have to change this. I just have to change that, and that's just working smart. Now, let's think about this. If, in fact, I'm going to have an article 2 across the page, I'd probably want to have 2, 4, 6, 8. I want to have whole numbers. So I'm going to go to the code, and before I do that, I'm just going to select this article. I'm going to go to the code. It's already selected. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to hit the return key. Now, because I'm working smart here, and I'm in code mode anyway, I can do something very, very simple. And this might rock your world. Okay? So, because I called it very simple, column 2, column 3, etc., we can do something very, very simple. Now, I just want to share with you this. All Dreamweaver does, what does Dreamweaver do? All Dreamweaver does is write code. That's all it does. That's what it does. So any problem, any issue that you have with your page is in the code. Because all Dreamweaver does, pulling down a menu, hitting a shortcut, doing this, all it does is write code. Period. End of story. That's all it does. That's what it does. So whatever you want to change, you can change inside the code, if in fact that's what you wanted to do. I'm just going to share with you a little bit of showing off here, but a little bit of production techniques. What we're going to do is this. We're going to search for this piece of text. So I'm going to take that, and we're going to find that. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste that to here, and I'm going to replace it with this. Pretty cool. So all this trick in the book, guys. It's a simple search and replace. It's just like Microsoft Word or WordPerfect from back in 1978. Okay, find, change. Now, once you have something selected, okay, then it automatically puts it here. Now, part of the reason why I did the closing, the greater than symbol, is because, I'm going to close this for a second, is because I have column 3 in my rule structure. So I don't want to replace this. That would be catastrophe. Okay, I want to replace this unique piece of text. So I select, and incidentally, I don't want to select this because they're not all the same text. They're not the same. So I'm going to select this. And if it helps you to copy it beforehand, when you go to find it, automatically puts it there for you. So I'm simply going to find this and replace it with that. And replace all. And I can take this dialog box and get rid of it. So now when I go back to code mode, how cool is that? Okay, simple, simple, simple. So that's how I can get classes that basically help and assist me with sizes. Now we can use sizes for width, for height, for background colors, etc., etc. But the thing I really want to drive home when working with classes is classes can be applied many, many times to the same page. So if I decided to have two inside my, let's say that I had a series of paragraphs here, and I want one paragraph to basically be across the page twice. So I could do it right here. So I could say this paragraph right here, we're going to assign a class of 2 columns. Now, why is that not affecting it? Because what I've done here is I basically pigeonholed this to be just for the article. Now, if you want this to be more omnipotent or more global, then I could do something like this. So I can have it apply to the column itself, and then just backtrack it. I'll explain that in a later video. Okay, but classes are really, really, really cool, guys. The one thing you have to, 3 things you have to understand about classes. If you name the class, it begins with a period. Anything begins with a period becomes a class. So notice that the name of the class down here is not period. The period is what gets it to this menu. When you put a period before a rule name, it becomes a class. Therefore, it goes into this menu. But notice the name of the class is not period D color, period column C. That's very, very important. In fact, in our code, the same thing. It's simply the name of the class here. The period is what gave it and recognized it as a class. More importantly, the period is what put it inside the class pull down menu. And again, classes are defined, then classes are assigned. So I hope you enjoyed this section on working with class and also the building structure of the CSS. If you haven't, if you're not part of this video series, I highly suggest that you get all my Dreamweaver videos. In fact, a little PSA here, I highly suggest you sign up for my All Access Pass. This way you get all my courses on Udemy for one flat fee, free updates for life, and I continually add more new video titles and more content to my existing videos. So do yourself a favor, either sign up for the entire course or sign up for all my Dreamweaver, or email me about how you can sign up for the entire All Access Pass, which is all my videos. I currently have 25 videos on Udemy as of today's date, and building more and more and more. So the All Access Pass gives you instant access to all my videos plus all my future videos. It's the best value on the web. Hey, go to lynda.com. They'll be more than happy to charge you $375 every single year. Well, that adds up really quickly. Talk to you soon. Carpe diem. Thank you kindly for your support and enjoy the day.